My name is Lila Bennett, and I'm 30 years old. For nearly 3 decades, I've grown used to feeling invisible in my own family. To my parents, Ellen and James, I was always the responsible one, the one who could take care of herself, and therefore didn't need to be coddled. They run a small flower shop in the suburbs of Seattle, Washington, called Bennett's Blooms. Everyone in town knows the place, the vibrant bouquets, the delicate rose arrangements. But no one knew me. The one behind the counter through all those childhood years, arranging stems while other kids played, doing homework amid the scent of lilies and greenery. Ethan, my younger brother, 3 years my junior, was different. He was the golden child. He didn't have to be brilliant or hardworking. One smile from him could melt the room. When Ethan forgot his homework, it was because he was under stress. When I earned a scholarship, it was just because she's always been studious. He was loved unconditionally. I had to work for every scrap of recognition. I didn't complain. I put myself through school on a scholarship, graduated, rented a modest apartment in the city, repeated graphic design at a tech startup, and built my life piece by piece. I wasn't flashy, but I was disciplined. No debt, no reckless spending. I always believed if no one hands you a door, build your own. The only person who ever made me feel unconditionally loved was my grandfather, Henry. He was the only one who truly listened to me, who remembered my birthday without a calendar, and who once told me I had vision. When he passed away 2 years ago in 2023, I felt like my heart shattered into 100 pieces. But what shocked me even more came during the reading of his will. He had left me a trust fund. It wasn't millions, but it was enough to help me buy my first apartment or open a small art gallery, something I had dreamed of for years. There were conditions, though. I could only access the trust once I turned 33, and even then only for specific purposes like housing, education, or starting a legitimate business. That seemed fair to me. I've never been the impulsive type. So I let the trust sit untouched, like a quiet promise between me and him. At the time, I thought everything would stay peaceful. But then Ethan got engaged. The faint scent of Henry's old pipe tobacco lingered in my memory, a reminder of the faith he placed in me. Everything shifted the moment he showed up, with a sparkling ring on his finger and a woman so seemingly perfect it was like the whole family fell under a spell. Sophie Reynolds, 29 years old, walked into our house with a brown sugar smile, soft waves cascading over her shoulders, and a voice like warm honey. She didn't have to try to be adored. Just one charming greeting, one tilt of her head, and my mother was already laughing, my father noticeably at ease. During the welcome dinner, as everyone raised their glasses to toast the happy news, Sophie sat directly across from me. Her eyes sparkled, mischievous, like she'd already rehearsed what came next. When the laughter quieted down, she suddenly turned toward me and spoke in a voice light as a feather on water. "Lila, I heard your grandfather left you a trust fund. Have you thought about helping Ethan? I mean, a wedding is such a big milestone, right?" Her words landed like a calculated probe, testing my defenses. I paused for a second. No one had ever brought that up at family dinners, at least not in front of me. I set my wine glass down, doing my best to keep a polite smile. "Yeah, he did leave a fund, but I can't access it until I reach the age requirement, and I already have plans for it." Sophie tilted her head. Her smile didn't falter, but her eyes, at that moment I realized, weren't those of a guest making friendly conversation. They were the eyes of someone calculating their next move. Like she had just knocked on the first door in a carefully planned campaign. She fully expected to win. "Oh, of course," she replied smoothly. "I just thought if someone in the family could help, Ethan's wedding could be truly perfect. Starting a new life isn't easy, you know." Her tone was honeyed, but the intent was sharp, slicing through the dinner's warmth. I smiled faintly and nodded, but deep down I was uneasy. Everyone else seemed oblivious to the shift in tone. Or maybe they chose to ignore it. The clinking glasses drowned out my unease, but Sophie's gaze lingered, a silent challenge. I thought it was just an offhand comment, a throwaway remark made over a cheerful dinner. But then I caught the way Sophie's gaze held on to mine for a heartbeat longer before she turned to clink glasses with someone else. And I knew without a doubt she wasn't joking. And from that moment on, I should have known. The nightmare was only just beginning. After that evening, I thought the trust fund topic would fade like a bad joke. But not even a week later, Sophie showed up again, this time at my uncle's backyard barbecue in Bellevue. While everyone sat under the porch roof, munching on burgers and chatting about the wedding plans, Sophie pulled her chair closer to mine, her floral dress fluttering in the breeze. "Lila," she said, her voice low enough for only the two of us to hear. "I don't mean to bother you, but I've been working on the wedding budget. Ethan mentioned you might have a little extra set aside, is that true?" Her words were a velvet trap, soft but deliberate. I set my iced water on the wooden table, my eyes still following the kids chasing each other on the grass. "I don't have extra. That trust isn't accessible until I turn 33, and even if it were, it wouldn't be for someone else's wedding." Sophie let out a laugh, no longer the sweet tone from before, but something hushed and sharp. "Yeah, I get it. It's just Ethan's under a lot of pressure. My family wants us to have the wedding at a nice venue, but we're struggling a bit. I just thought if you could help, just a small part, it'd be a lot more meaningful than letting that money sit untouched for another 3 years." Her eyes gleamed with expectation, as if my refusal was a mere formality. I turned to look directly at her. "It's not just sitting there, Sophie. I have plans for it, and I'm under no obligation to pay for anyone's wedding." Her eyes didn't flinch, but her smile paused for a beat. "Oh, I didn't mean to pressure you. I just thought you're part of Ethan's family." "Family?" I bit the inside of my cheek to stop myself from laughing. Strange how someone who's only been in my brother's life for a few months could talk about family like it was a badge of honor. Her floral perfume cloyed the air, a stark contrast to her sharp intent. I left the party early that day. When I got home, I checked my phone and saw a message from my mom. "Sophie spoke with me. She's just worried about Ethan. Don't be too harsh on her." The message stung, a quiet betrayal from the one who should have defended me. I didn't reply. Every time I stayed silent, people assumed I was being agreeable. But this time, I was simply wondering, if I keep yielding, how much more will they expect? About 10 days later, I agreed to attend a brunch Sophie organized with a few of her close friends. Ethan said it'd be good for building a sister-in-law relationship. I said yes, partly to see what they were planning, partly out of curiosity. The brunch was held at a French-style cafe in Capitol Hill. I arrived 5 minutes late. When I walked in, Sophie and 3 of her friends were seated around the table, all dressed like they were headed to a royal wedding. "Lila, you're here," Sophie beamed. "Come sit right here." Her enthusiasm was a polished act, setting the stage for what followed. Before I even took a sip of orange juice, the conversation was already being steered, very intentionally, toward money. A woman named Emma sighed. "I wish I had a fund like Lila's. If it were me, I'd invest in my family. Help out the people who matter most." Another chimed in. "Exactly. Weddings are a big deal. Once you're in the family, well, what's yours is everyone's, right?" Their words were a coordinated assault, each smile a weapon. I set my glass down and looked straight at Sophie. "I just told my friends I was stressed. I'm sorry if you felt uncomfortable." Her apology was as hollow as her smile, a performance for her audience. I stood up, keeping my voice calm. "Sophie, whether I have money or not is my business, and I won't let anyone, your friends included, put pressure on me about it." The cafe's clinking dishes faded as I walked out, their stares burning into my back. But again, that evening Ethan called. "I really don't want you two to be at odds," he said, sounding worn out. "I think Sophie is just anxious about the wedding. Being anxious is one thing, Ethan, but constantly circling back to the idea that I should pay for your wedding? That's not anxiety anymore," but you have exhaled. "Sophie just wants to feel like part of the family," I replied, voice cold. "Then maybe she should start by respecting the people in that family." Then I hung up. That Friday night, just after I got home from work, my mom called. "Lila, I know you feel like you're under pressure, but Sophie just wants to be accepted. She's not trying to cause trouble." "Trouble?" I let out a quiet laugh, though my chest felt hollow. "I never said she was malicious, Mom. But that money is mine. Just because I haven't used it doesn't mean it's up for grabs." Mom went silent for a long moment. I just think maybe if you shared a little, it'd ease the tension in the family." Her words were a soft betrayal, cloaked in care but heavy with expectation. I ended the call, then sat quietly on the couch. The soft glow from the lamp lit the white walls around me, reflecting the same question looping in my mind. Am I being too cold? Am I clinging to something I don't even need right now? I thought walking away from that brunch would be the end of it. But I underestimated Sophie. Instead of pushing directly, she shifted tactics. In the following weeks, during every family gathering, she stopped confronting me head-on. She switched to sly, floating comments, gentle on the surface but sharp underneath. "It's such a blessing when someone in the family has the means to chase their dreams," she said one evening as we sat around Grandma's table eating apple pie. "If I had that kind of fortune, I'd use it to care for loved ones, bring everyone closer." She didn't look at me, but the eyes at the table did. Her words were a veiled accusation, drawing silent judgment from the room. Another time, while flipping through a sample wedding album, Sophie gently brushed her hand over a page featuring a lavishly decorated ceremony hall and sighed. "Ethan and I love this venue, but we know it's just a dream. We don't want to be a burden on anyone." I set my coffee cup on the table and gave a faint smile. "Who told you you're being a burden?" Sophie turned toward me, her eyes wide as if offended. "Oh, I didn't mean it like that. I was just thinking out loud." Her feigned innocence was a calculated move, sharpening the room's tension. That's when I realized she had switched to a Cold War strategy. Meanwhile, Ethan was more clearly siding with her. One night I got a call from him. His voice wasn't confrontational, but something had changed. "Lila, I've been thinking a lot," he started. "I know you have plans for the trust, but I think I deserve a say too. We're family, after all." I raised an eyebrow. "What are you saying, Ethan? That you have some kind of claim over the trust Grandpa left specifically to me?" "A claim," he quickly replied. "But Sophie and I are in a tough spot right now. Just a small portion could make a big difference." I gripped the phone tighter. "I've said this before. The trust isn't accessible yet, and I already have my own plans for it." Ethan was quiet for a while. "You keep saying your plans, but what about everyone else? What about the family?" His words echoed Sophie, a betrayal dressed as duty. My mom, who had always been gentle with me, was beginning to shift her tone too. One afternoon, while I was helping at the flower shop, she pulled me aside in the back room, away from the customer's view. "I know you don't want to feel pressured," she whispered. "But think about it. If your grandfather were still alive, would he want you to cling to that money? Or would he be proud to see you help your brother on his big day?" Her question was a quiet manipulation, twisting Henry's legacy against me. I looked at her, heart sinking. "I'm not clinging. I'm honoring what he left me because he trusted I'd use it wisely, not because someone cornered me into it." She let out a soft sigh. "Sometimes keeping peace in the family matters more than who's right or wrong." I gave a dry smile. "The problem is, everyone's using peace as an excuse to push me into sacrificing." The scent of roses filled the air, but it couldn't mask the weight of her words. Even my dad, normally quiet, decided to weigh in. That Sunday evening during dinner, he pulled his chair closer and said, "I know you're a responsible person," eyes still fixed on his plate of grilled fish. "But sometimes responsibility isn't just about taking care of yourself. It's about helping the people you love, even when it's not part of the plan." His rare intervention was a heavy blow, aligning him with their demand. I felt surrounded, not by knives or shouts, but by soft, calculated words that peeled back your skin one layer at a time. Everyone kept saying it was out of love. But why did it feel like I was being cornered into giving up everything? The dining room's warm light felt oppressive, illuminating their unified front against me. That night, I sat alone in my apartment under the soft yellow glow of my lamp and opened Henry's old letter. His handwriting was shaky, but still intact. "Lila, if there ever comes a time when people around you don't understand you, remember, Grandpa does. I left you this money because I believe you'll know what's best." The letter's worn edges were a tangible link to his trust, grounding me in my resolve. I folded the letter, placed it gently on my chest, and closed my eyes. I knew I was doing the right thing, but the feeling of being isolated by my own family sat in my throat like a stone. Maybe this wasn't the climax yet. But I knew one thing for sure. If they pushed any further, I wasn't staying silent. That Saturday night, I stopped by Mom's house to pick up a few old things still in the garage. As I walked into the living room, I saw Sophie sitting there with my mom. They were drinking tea, chatting like old friends. I gave a polite nod, planning to head straight to the garage, but Sophie stood up. "Lila," she said, her tone no longer sweet or roundabout. "I think it's time we had an honest conversation." Her directness was a shift, a bold move in their escalating campaign. I turned back and caught my mother's eyes. She was staring into her teacup like she wished she could vanish into it. "You've said no, and I understand that," Sophie continued. "But I have to be honest. I'm really disappointed. You have the power to help us start our life in a good place, and instead you're choosing to keep it to yourself. I don't want to use this word, but honestly, you're being selfish." Her accusation was a naked assault, stripping away the pretense of family unity. I froze. There was a moment of silence so tight it could crack glass. My mother didn't say a word. "Selfish," I repeated, each syllable grinding out like stone. "You're talking about money I haven't even touched, left to me by my grandfather with specific conditions. And you're calling me selfish for not breaking the rules so you can have a lavish wedding? No, Felish, we just want one special day to start our life. And I think if you really cared about family, you'd do the right thing." Her defiance was a challenge, daring me to yield. I didn't respond. I just looked at my mom. But she stayed silent. She didn't take my side. Her silence was a deeper cut, a mother's failure to defend her own. 2 days later, Ethan texted me asking to have lunch at a small Italian place near my office. I hesitated, but eventually agreed. Maybe I was still holding out hope for an apology, a shred of conscience, a sign that my younger brother was still the person I once trusted. But when I walked into the restaurant, I saw Sophie sitting at the table too, notebook resting on her lap. Her eyes sparkled like I had just walked into a contract negotiation. "You made it." Ethan stood up. "We already ordered for you. Hope you still like lasagna." I sat down quietly, watching them. This didn't feel like a family meal. It felt like a transaction. The restaurant's warm aroma of garlic and basil couldn't mask the cold agenda. After a few pleasantries, Sophie opened her notebook. "So, we've given it a lot of thought, and I think we can meet in the middle." I tilted my head. "Meet in the middle?" Ethan jumped in, visibly tense. "What we mean is, if you can't give all of it, maybe you could give half. You'd still keep the rest. That way, everyone wins. You're asking me to split in half a trust I haven't even been allowed to access yet, correct?" I asked, keeping my tone steady. Sophie nodded, as if the request was completely reasonable. I leaned back in my chair, smiling faintly. "Thanks for taking the time to plan my future for me. But the answer is still no." Sophie frowned. "You really won't compromise? Not even a little?" I looked her straight in the eye. "I don't owe any compromises to people who've spent weeks pressuring and manipulating me." Ethan exhaled. "Lila, I thought you were the one who cared about family." "And you," I said coldly, "are selling out your sister to please your fiancé." The table's silence was a chasm, separating me from the brother I once knew. I thought that would be the end of it, but it wasn't. The next day, my mom called me over for what she said would be a calm conversation. When I arrived, everyone was there. Dad, Mom, Ethan, Sophie, and me. A full-blown family meeting. They sat around the dining table like we were mediating a property dispute. My dad started, "Lila, we're not trying to pressure you, but the whole family feels if you contributed part of the trust, it would relieve a lot of tension," my mom added. "Just a little, as a sign that you support and respect your brother's happiness." Ethan said softly, "They're in control of everything. One click and it's done. I know you can do it." Their unified front was a suffocating pressure, each voice piling on the guilt. I looked at each of them. Not one person asked if I was okay. Not one asked how I felt after being called selfish. They just wanted to fix the issue. And the issue was me not giving them money. The table's polished surface reflected their expectant faces, a mirror of their entitlement. I stood up. "If this is what you call family, then at the very least, remember, family is where you're respected, not demanded from. My voice was steady, a quiet rebellion against their demands. I walked out. And this time, I didn't look back. That night, after the exhausting and disappointing family meeting, I came home feeling something I'd never quite felt before. Angry, hurt, but strangely clear. There were no more tears, no more self-doubt, just one sentence pounding in my head like a drumbeat. They won't stop unless I make them stop. The clarity was a spark, igniting my resolve to protect my future. The next morning, I opened my laptop and typed into the search bar, Estate and Family Harassment Attorney, Seattle. I scheduled a meeting with Claire Morton, a sharp attorney in her 40s, with eyes that made it hard for anyone to lie for long. When I walked into her office that Tuesday afternoon, April 15, 2025, I said one sentence. My family is trying to force me to hand over a trust I'm not even legally allowed to touch, and they don't know I've started collecting evidence. Claire nodded and motioned for me to sit. Tell me everything from the beginning, and I did, not skipping a single detail. From Sophie's subtle hints to the lunch where she opened her notebook like she was proposing a business deal, to the family meeting where everyone stared at me like I was the only thing standing in the way of happiness. Claire didn't interrupt. She just took notes and occasionally frowned. When I got to the part where Sophie directly asked about the trust's value and how her friends started messaging me with comments like, "People with money should share it," Claire closed her notebook. "Lila, this is no longer just a family matter," she said. "This is a pattern of harassment. It shows signs of coercion and emotional harm." I swallowed hard. "So what can I do now?" "We'll send Ms. Reynolds a cease and desist letter. If she continues, I'll escalate this to court. In the meantime, I want you to start collecting all evidence, texts, emails, voice recordings if needed, and under no circumstance should you meet with them alone again without a witness." Her firm tone was a lifeline, guiding me through the storm. But before I could take action, Sophie made the first move. 2 days later, I got a message from an old college friend. "Lila, I just saw Sophie post a story about a future sister-in-law who has money but never knows how to share. Everyone knows she's talking about you." I checked Instagram. She didn't mention me by name, but every word was aimed squarely in my direction. Some people don't understand what family means, that everyone with money has a heart. The comments were full of sympathy, judgment, and mockery. Some people even tagged Sophie, wishing her strength in such a selfish family. The post's veiled attack was a public shaming, twisting my resolve into villainy. I was stunned. But then the shock gave way to determination. I sent screenshots of everything to my attorney, Claire. She simply replied, "Preserve them. Don't respond. I'm drafting the letter." Her calm directive was a shield, protecting me from Sophie's tactics. I thought this was just a social media stunt. But the bigger blow came the following week. The head of HR at my company called me into his office. "Lila, I need to ask you something," he said, his face tense. "Someone called, claiming to be a relative, and asked to verify your salary and income records." I was stunned. "Did they leave a name?" "No name. Female voice, polite tone, but way too many questions." The moment I left that office, I knew exactly who was behind it. That evening, I called Claire. "She's trying to dig into my financial records through my job. Is there anything worse than this?" Claire's voice cut sharp. "Good. Now we have a clear basis for the formal cease and desist indices, and if she takes one more step, I'll proceed with filing a civil harassment claim." Her resolve bolstered mine, turning fear into action. The next morning, the letter was sent. The wording was simple but firm. Any attempt to access, disclose, or interfere with the personal or financial affairs of our client, Miss Lila Bennett, will be treated as harassment, invasion of privacy, and defamation, and may result in serious legal consequences. I hit send on the email with a copy to Ethan. I didn't say a word, no apology, no explanation. The letter was a line in the sand, a legal boundary they couldn't cross. I never expected the turning point in this whole battle would be a misdirected message. It happened on a Monday morning, May 5, 2025, just as I was making coffee at work. My phone buzzed non-stop. Messages were flying in from the family group chat. Normally just a place for flower shop updates and occasional photos of floral arrangement, the first message was from Ethan, sent straight into the family chat, which included me, our parents, Sophie, and 2 aunts from Dad's side. "Sophie, I can't believe you sent that stuff to your friends. You called Lila a walking safe and said Mom and Dad would pressure her into giving in. Are you serious right now?" Then came 3 screenshots, all from Ethan's phone. I froze behind the coffee counter. The screenshots were text Sophie had sent in a group chat titled Bride Squad. One message read, "Just let James and Ellen do their thing. Lila will crack soon enough. She's not used to being cornered." Another said, "Ethan's worried, but I'm not. Half that trust fund will be my wedding gift. Once the extended family chimes in, she'll fold." The last one hit me like a punch to the chest. Pretending to respect Lila is exhausting, but it works. She loves being treated kindly, so I fake it. No big deal. The screenshots were a raw exposure, Sophie's true intentions laid bare for all to see. I don't know what made Ethan look through those messages, but it was clear he meant to send them to Sophie privately and accidentally dropped them into the family group. For the next 3 minutes, the chat went dead silent. Then my mom texted, "Sophie, what is this about?" My dad followed up, "Sophie, are these messages real?" No response. A minute later, Sophie finally replied, "You're all misunderstanding. I was just venting to close friends. Those messages don't reflect how I really feel." Her deflection was feeble, crumbling under the weight of her own words. I didn't say anything. I just left the group chat. The act of leaving was a quiet liberation, severing their hold on me. That night, Ethan called me. His voice was trembling slightly. "Lila, I'm sorry. I saw the messages when Sophie left her phone charging on the kitchen counter. I didn't mean to blow everything up like that. I was just so angry. My hands were shaking, and I hit the wrong button. I didn't respond. I didn't know she thought that way. I thought she was just stressed about the wedding, but after reading what she wrote, I felt ashamed. I closed my eyes and kept my tone steady. I warned you so many times. I know, I was blind. I thought you were just trying to hold on to the money, not that you were hurt." I let out a cold laugh. What I'd been trying to protect, Ethan, is my self-respect. The money, that's something Sophie was never worthy of touching. My words were a blade cutting through his excuses. In the days that followed, the illusion shattered. Sophie tried to do damage control by calling every relative. She claimed the messages were just jokes in a private chat, and that Lila is blowing this out of proportion because of pride. But no one believed her, especially after they had all seen her actual words. One of my aunts, who had once messaged me to be more understanding, now sent me an apology. I was wrong. I shouldn't have taken sides without knowing the full story. A cousin who had commented publicly on Sophie's Facebook post quietly unliked it and messaged me, "Lila, I'm really sorry I trusted the wrong person." The apologies were a quiet vindication, proof that truth could outshine manipulation. I didn't need to speak up. I didn't need to seek revenge. The truth did it for me. Sophie stopped showing up to family gatherings. Her social media went silent. The sweet stories, the ring photos, the countdown to the big day, all vanished like they'd never existed. My parents, they changed too. Not with direct apologies, but through softer glances when I walked into a room, through the way they stopped mentioning the wedding, through the silence that felt more like remorse than distant. Their shifted demeanor was a subtle acknowledgement, a crack in their complicity. As for me, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt lighter, because in the end, I didn't have to scream to defend myself. I just had to wait for the truth to speak. 2 days after my conversation with Ethan, I got a short text. I ended things with Sophie. I'm starting therapy. I need to understand how I let it go this far. I stared at the message on my screen, not sure how to feel. Not victorious, not angry anymore, just hollow. Maybe because deep down I always knew this day would come. Ethan had once been the little brother who chased after me, fought over toys, called me the best sister ever whenever I arranged flowers. But then he grew up, drawn to a kind of spotlight handed out more easily than truth, and when that light faded, he finally realized how long he'd been standing in the wrong place. His message was a faint echo of the brother I'd once known, reaching for redemption. Sophie vanished completely. No calls, no apologies, no public explanation. A friend from my yoga group told me she'd canceled the wedding venue and returned the dress. Relatives stopped referring to her as the future sister-in-law. All that remained was a void, like a smudge on a family photo that never got framed. Her absence was a quiet justice, a space where her influence once loomed. My parents started changing in the smallest ways. My mom would ask what I wanted to eat over the weekend. My dad sent me articles about small business grants with sincere advice. There was still a distance between us, but at least now it wasn't built from pressure or expectations. It was caution rooted in regret. Their tentative gestures were a bridge, fragile but forming. One Sunday evening when I stopped by the flower shop to see them, my mom handed me a box of lavender macarons, my favorite since childhood, but something she rarely made because of how time-consuming they were. She gently placed the box in my hands. "I'm sorry," she said softly, "for not listening to you sooner." I looked at her. "I don't need you to undo the past. I just need you to understand that I wasn't wrong for protecting what's mine." She nodded. "I understand. And I'm proud of you for doing something I never had the courage to do." Her words were a quiet healing, a step toward reconciliation. I said nothing more, because I didn't need to. Some forgiveness doesn't require words. It only needs someone to truly listen and understand, not out of guilt, but out of choice. And that's enough. I began setting new boundaries. I didn't show up at every family dinner. I stopped responding to messages that felt more like interrogation than care. And I no longer felt the need to prove anything to anyone. The trust fund still sits untouched in the account, waiting for the day I turn 33. But now I no longer see it as a reward or a burden. It's simply a symbol of trust, one passed down from my grandfather and one I continue to build with myself. I'm in no rush to use it. I've always been capable of building my life with my own two hands, and if the day comes when I decide to use that money, it won't be because someone forced me to. It'll be because I choose to, at the right time for the right reasons. The fund is a quiet promise, a future I'll shape on my terms. Ethan is still in therapy. Sometimes he sends me a short message sharing something from his sessions, or just writes, "What do you think if I go back to study architecture?" I'm not sure he's changed completely, but I do know he's starting over. And that's the only thing I needed to see from the brother who once turned his back on me. His tentative steps are a fragile hope, a chance for us to rebuild. As for me, after everything, I don't see myself as someone who won. I'm just someone who stayed steady through a storm, and from all that seemed broken, I learned 3 simple, precious truths. That family should never cost you your sense of self, that kindness needs boundaries, and that true peace can't exist if it comes at the price of your own values. These truths are my compass, guiding me through the aftermath. One early autumn morning in September 2025, I stood at the door of my small apartment, holding a cup of coffee, the chilly breeze running through my unbrushed hair. I smiled, thinking of the future. I still don't know exactly what I'll do with the trust fund. Maybe a small art gallery in the neighborhood. Maybe that unfinished master's degree in design I still dream about. Maybe something I haven't even imagined yet. But now, I'm no longer in a hurry to define success or prove anything. This journey taught me to value inner strength more than outside validation. And maybe the most important thing isn't the money my grandfather left, but how I choose to live in a way that honors his faith in me. The coffee's warmth grounded me, a quiet anchor in my newfound peace. Whatever lies ahead, I know I'll walk forward with my dignity intact, in a calm no one can take away from me. What do you think about Lila's choices and the way she stood up to family pressure? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful, inspiring stories about family, boundaries, and self-respect.